Hello, my name is Ezra, my tag is Niche Broadcaster, and I really like simulation games, like a lot. Some of my earliest memories were playing on The Sims 1, SimCity, the Civ games, that weird game that let you torture that poor defenseless stickman. Overall, I'm a pretty big strategy and simulation fan. I am also a fan of horror, especially when it comes to more Lovecraftian horror. The dude himself, not the greatest in the world, but he could write a pretty convincing, eerie story that never quite gave enough to tell you why you should be scared, just that you should be scared. There are a ton of videos out there of people talking different Lovecraftian games: Darkest Dungeon, Call of Cthulhu, Bloodborne, Darkwood, Amnesia, Penumbra, Alone in the Dark, The Secret World, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Shrouded Isle, The Chant, Cultist Simulator. There are dozens of games that already focus on this eerie, uncomfortable kind of horror, and even more video essays describing everything they did right and everything they did wrong. Or Yuppie Psycho, my beloved. Honestly, as much as I love the genre, I've been getting kind of burnt out over it. Playing World of Horror for the 19th time to collect all the achievements just isn't quite hitting anymore. Even though I do love World of Horror, I feel like I know what's gonna happen. Even with all the mods that are out there and all the different customizations you can make with these kinds of games, World of Horror only being a single example out of all of them, you can still only do so much with the bare bones what that game is. So, you could imagine my surprised delight over Rimworld, one of my favorite simulation games, putting out a new DLC over space horrors. Frights from deep in the universe, unimaginable horrors, too complex for the human mind to understand. I mean, while we still can't go across the ocean without mods, I can call to the harbinger of doom, death, and destruction, so win some and lose some, but this might be a step closer to our island paradises. Well, I think that's pretty much it, and if you've been in the Rimworld fandom lately, you'd know this is kinda old news. I am predictably late, given my experience into gaming videos, so you might be wondering why now? What is there to say about Anomaly that hasn't been said? And I'm honestly not really sure, but I still want to talk about it because I crave human interaction, and I just got laid off. Also, I had to wait for some mods to update because I don't care if it's new content. You can pry Rocket Man, and not my fault for my cold, dead hands. Before any of this became more of a solid thought, I did attempt doing a naked brutality run. It didn't go well. Alright, so I had to pause for a second because my lady came home for lunch, and no one tells you, but this is probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. I'm just sitting in my living room completely alone with nothing playing, doing nothing, talking into my computer. And I didn't tell her that I was doing this because I don't know why it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing though. So when she walked in, I was just completely shitted. So I hope you guys like this labor of blood, sweat, tears, and shame. The shame I have felt when she walked in and just saw me holding a microphone. She streams too, so if you like this, check out her stream. We're both pretty new to this. Anyways, we're gonna get back to this. So we're going with a tribal start because the naked brutality just wasn't working. The one person was dying within 15 minutes. We're gonna go Cassandra Classic. We're gonna go Adventure Story. We're gonna do Reload Anytime because I'm not that guy. I do like to have the population a little bit higher up than normal, but that's really the only thing we do like special for this. I go through the random site a few times just to see what RNG has in store for us before ultimately settling on a boreal forest at the northern hemisphere of our Rimworld. Thought it was pretty, and I also wanted to make sure I had actual seasons. That's one of my favorite parts about Rimworld, and I feel like it kind of amplifies the importance of planning, even in your first year. If you don't have enough food for winter, you will starve. Before we go down to planning though, we have to make our little guys. I went back and forth a few times before I could really figure out which pawns I wanted. I knew there were a few that I didn't want off the bat, like an 83-year-old and a 78-year-old. There are a few things I consider when I'm making my pawns. Obviously their skills, health stats, and backstories are important, but I also like to look for social relationships within them. Most of the time I want to encourage some sort of procreation, and if they're already married, it's just easier. Looks like I wasn't so lucky this time around, no real relationships, and the pawns aren't really the best. They could be worse, so I'm not too worried about it yet. I do switch out one of the pawns here. Sorry, pig. So, first we do have our Saxabra, a 22-year-old soul-surviving hearth tender, incapable of violence and preferring to remain indoors. This guy's smart enough, but still a slight liability. Part of the reason I keep him is the 7 medical. After that, we have Naroka, a 25-year-old archer. She owns a short bow. Bren is 38 and a hunter. Then we have Gorilla. She is our second oldest at 40. Finally, we have our older Otter at 54 years old. On loading, we take a good second to gather our surroundings. Ocean to the north, lots of rock faces, lakes all around, and a few shitty little debris houses. It's good. I love shitty little debris houses. We go ahead and claim a beautiful lakeside property of our own. An area worth at least 18 million on the Denver housing market. From there, we get to work. We need an enclosed space for everyone to live in, even tents coming as a starter item for this scenario. With some mods I have, I don't want to risk whatever wildlife there might be attacking us if they go crazy. This way I can lock people inside if things go bad and I can't handle it, which I probably won't be able to. Then we'll just start clearing out the trees, both for lumber and space, before placing the tents we were given in a centralized spot. Research bench and table, that comes first. I could get furniture from around the map, probably in all these ruins, but I like the way our religion makes things look with the Catholic core. Day 1 is mainly getting life started, designation where trash goes, and where we'll keep our shit. We go ahead and we immediately risk Bren's life before she even has a chance to claim a tent, which is always really good. So doors are put in, and a creepy message lets us know that we probably shouldn't mess with these weird ruins. I tell her to get back to it. It doesn't take long, but it is pretty creepy when the monolith activates, shooting out tendrils and weird groans. Before letting me know that Brent has been given PTSD. So with the monolith being activated, my understanding to start with is I'll be able to study it, I think. We start with Void Provocation. This will allow us to perform some ritual over time. In response to all of this, a Grey Pal consumes our home area, stinking of death and stinging us. There is no indication of when this ends. Regardless, we continue. Crafting spot, basic but an amazing resource for continued survival. More chairs are finished, and the order to make more bows are made. I need as many people armed as possible, along with making more clothing, as I'm sure their current clothing won't last long. We placed last of our tents, and are now in the afternoon. I equip all the bows I started with, as I did not read my supply list, and suspend our order to make more momentarily. So, one of the cooler aspects about this new DLC is this thing called the Harbinger trees. At the end of the day, I'm told we have found it, and it's this mythic anomaly in the form of a gnarled, fleshy tree. It consumes all the corpses left in its immediate area. In the fog, it's kinda intense, and an easy button allows us to create our corpse zone. Efficient recycling, of course, yet still unnerving as the twisted thing just gets bigger. I allow animals that cannot be harvested, so like if they've rotted or, you know, I think that's the only time they can't be harvested. So I allow anything that can't be harvested because it's been rotted, put it over there. Along with any non-colonist bodies, I'm still kind of sentimental, and feeding your friend to a little pet shop of horrors, it seems cruel. I then set up my spot for freshly hunted animals right next to our base just for, you know, our hunters. And that's pretty much the first day. For first impressions, I was kind of expecting a bit more for the monolith-focused playthrough, but it seems like this DLC in general is just really focused on longevity, going into like all the different steps of it that I wasn't exactly expecting it to be that deep. This is kind of part of it. The first day we discover the monolith, we get the Grey Pal, we get the Harbinger trees. Like, that's 3 things, that's kind of a lot, and I guess I was just kind of expecting like a huge fucking raid or some shit. I'm not sure what exactly it is that I was expecting. But it's not bad, and it definitely still has me interested, especially when we have the activation from the monolith. Like, that's a really cool scene that you can tell they put in some time to both make unnerving, but also try to make it as titillating. Titillating as possible. They did a very good job with trying to make things very H.P. Lovecraft. Again, I don't know if that's the best way to put it or not, but that's kind of where my mind goes to when I'm thinking of more cosmic horrors, things beyond human comprehension. I think that to me it reminds me of H.P. Lovecraft, and there's tons of other authors that have done it since then. And I'm sure there were a couple that did it before then and didn't get popular. I don't know. Anyways, one of the things that I always had an issue with about Rimworld was I felt it didn't really have enough when it came into the levels of lore. You don't really get any information about the settlements near you. You get the initial message of the settlement that you start of why you're there, but that's about it. And that's cool because you get to make your own stories, but part of me wishes that there was more lore of the world itself. We're going back to gameplay. After everything, we're going to go do a quick checkup on the villagers, make sure everyone was still feeling positive with the initial optimism. We go ahead and skip through the night into day 2. Noroko wakes up first, eats some shit-ass pemmican. While she does, I look at nearby resources and see what we can mine out. Bren is the first now to get up, and she immediately goes north to deliver corpses upon the Harbinger trees. Tendrils immediately pop out through consuming the corpse. Bren returns home to everyone else awake, passing Noroko, who is also going to go drop off a corpse to get things cleaned up. This continues until Bren goes for a walk, and I'm reminded to make something for the villagers to gain recreation. Before I can really start getting anything done, our first attack starts. A sight stealer is revealed next to our house, and I shit my pants at the sound it makes. It is literally like right by our house, kind of in the walkway, and between different layers of rubble. It just way too close for me to be comfortable, especially as I suck at Rimworld combat and mainly use ranged combat to hide. Regardless, I draft Gorilla, Otter, and Bren to start attacking the Anomaly. Noroko tries to run away, I don't allow it, and I order her to assist. I click for the dog to start getting trained, but I doubt it'll make it long. My pets in this game never really do. I do also get a new research for a proximity detector, and then the sight dealer is dead, really without much fuss. Everyone is allowed to go back to their afternoon, and the sight stealer is hauled away to be eaten by trees. So after that big fight, we go into building our roof, and it honestly makes me feel a bit more secure in our location. It hasn't been all too hot or cold, but this additional insulation will keep our villagers a little happier. I do also set up a growing zone for rice. It's probably my favorite plant due to its really fast growing period, and it has a really good storage time. We also set up a heal root zone. It'll be a while before I have anyone that can plant it, but I'll just set it there, and whenever someone gets to that level, they'll just immediately go. Taking a peek at our religion itself a little further, and then all the predetermined preset, it kind of sucks. Sex is forbidden, and the research super slow, but they do have efficient void study and welcome rough living in pain, so that is helpful for this scenario at least. As one of their wants, we start to get some torches thrown down, and that is the end of day 2. Aside from Otter getting up for a little midnight snack, the night is uneventful. Day 3, everyone immediately wakes up, gets to work, torches being built, and research getting started. I hadn't really mentioned much about the research yet, as I initially chose electricity, but that was a bit of a lofty first goal when you don't know anything. While it would definitely be useful, I think we have some time until we get there. Finally, the roof is all finished and torches are constructed, giving a nice homey feel to the hut. I put down the blueprints for flooring to spruce the place up a bit, and I get some harvesting done for berries and medicine, hopefully. Bren is starving, and I realize I haven't really done much for food, which is kind of a bad move. It's like, I've not played this game. It's not like I've not played this game or just forgot the most basics of finding food on your first day. I don't know. I know Bren feel like shit. Bren feels bad right now. She hungry. So we get some berries, sow some rice, and search for some more harvestables on the map. I do finally change our research to basic furniture. I do have the vanilla research expanded, so I need shelves, and that's not something you know automatically with the tribal start, which I have definitely been taking for granted on every other playthrough. I normally just do like the crash landed playthrough, though it's a little bit more of a grind than I'm used to, which is cool. We're still struggling pretty bad with low food and starvation. We weren't able to harvest much. So while everyone is sleeping, I go ahead and order in some hunting to be done when they wake up, which is seen to promptly upon the morn. That's the first thing that most of these guys get up to. We do luckily get some meat on day 4. So we get our void provocation finished. From there, we do decide to go on to skip abduction. Both the stove and butcher's table get up and operational, luckily, giving us a semi-reliable way to eat, as long as we can at least get our ingredients, which we're working on it. This will have, this is all we have to have work until we start getting crops in. A moose comes in, and that will luckily last us a while if we can get it. Everyone but Naroka goes to bed at a normal hour. I neglect her and tile a couple of floor spots I missed, put a couple more torches up. Naroka comes back, goes to bed. She does not tell me where she was, and I do not ask. This is the end of day 4, and I think it's going alright so far. During the night, I put up some barricade blueprints. We move on to the morning of day 5, and I honestly think this is probably a good spot to pause. I do like Anomaly so far. Like I said at the beginning, I'm a bit further as I record this voiceover and edit everything. I do think there's a lot of really cool stuff. I do. Aside from, you know, the DLC, like the lore in the DLC, I don't really have any complaints. I do understand that this game is supposed to be what you make it, so you can decide on the lore being whatever you want. But that's just not what I personally look for in games. I wish there was some sort of story implications for this other than your immediate village, but at the same time, I am still fairly early into this DLC, so I will reserve most of my judgment until I get a little further in. The only other complaint I really have is I'm curious what the vision behind this DLC specifically being added in. I want to know. I guess it's more so I'm curious why other aspects of the game that I feel like fans were kind of more interested in, rather than just... I'm trying to put this in a way that's not, you know, kind of douchey, because I'm not necessarily mad at this DLC, because it is cool, and you can tell that a lot of time and effort was put into it. But my question is, why do we have this before we have vanilla mods, or vanilla vehicles, or boats, or again, a more reliable way to have, I guess, more specialty villages? But I want things to be a little bit more meaningful in this game rather than new content being added. And I guess, to make things more meaningful, it would be new content. And this game is so incredibly deep when it comes to both mechanics and the things you're able to do in this game. And I am super impressed with all the time and energy that is being put into this project and has been for the past decade. I wish that fans were a little bit more, I don't know if involved is the right word to use, or what specifically that word would be, but I do wish that we had a little bit more say into what the game was going to become, what we were going to get from this DLC. Like, if you asked a lot of people, if there was a poll of 100 people, I would be curious to of 100 people that play Rimworld, how many of them would be interested in this more Anomaly DLC versus being able to go through other settlements and towns, or being able to have more forms of transportation, or a more interesting end game for going through space, or really any lore in the world. Again, I know I keep harping on this lore, but that is one of my #1 things in games, and one of the things that's really steered me away from things like The Sims 4, and steered me away from games like City Skylines, and more towards the Civ games, because you're given a lot more story to really sink your teeth in, and for things to matter to you. And you don't get that in Rimworld, and I really feel like that's something that's being neglected. I've put a lot of time into this game, and really the only lore you're getting is from what you create of it, and that's fine. It's fine for a lot of people. I'm just curious why the Anomaly DLC was something that they put on the top of their list to release over something that would kind of, they added a ton of new content before they really hammered down content that's already in-game. So I'm somewhat disappointed by that aspect. But again, with that being said, this is still an amazing DLC, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. The game itself is always going to be incredible. You get it for an absolute steal on Steam for the amount of time you can put into it, the amount of things you can do with it, and it really is amazing. I'm just super curious on the whys for why Anomaly? Why was this the DLC that was really... why was this the next one? I feel like we had some really interesting and natural progressions with the previous DLCs of going into the more royalty. Even that is kind of iffy, but ideology, biotech, having children, having families, these are all, to me, natural progressions, and then it's kind of out of left field to then add these horror monsters. So, I don't know. I'm really enjoying, this aspect, this DLC so far. I really am. I think it's really cool, and I enjoy this kind of horror in general. I hope that we see more updates to the game itself before we go into adding more and more content. As you can tell, I really do like mods, and I feel like the majority of mods that I have could really be put in base game and feel completely natural and normal. There are some, of course, that, aren't natural and normal, and therefore a very specific audience, and that's fine. That's their business. I do wish there was a little bit more to the game. I don't know. I feel like a dick saying that, because the game, I've obviously put so many hours into it, and the game has so much to offer and give already, and it feels selfish to say things like that. It's just Anomaly was not what I was expecting for them to announce and come out with. But regardless of all of that, thank you for watching my first attempt at a video. I hope it was okay. I plan on making more if this is fun for me, which so far it has been fun. I think that's it. Bye.